Hi everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for coming today. My name's Sarah. I manage the restaurant partnerships here at Square Meal.
And my name's Ben, and I'm the editor of Square Meal on the restaurant side.
So we have a few things to talk to you about today. We're going to be talking about the best new restaurants. So on the first page of your restaurant roundup book, these are the restaurants we're going to be going through. So feel free to scribble any notes that you want to. Ben's going to talk you through the restaurants. I'm going to jump in and let you know if any of these restaurants have got private dining and what it's all about. And then at the end, we're going to do a bit of a Q&A about restaurant trends.
And obviously you can take the booklets away with you. So it's sort of, if you came last year, it's an updated version of last year. So you'll still find our favourite classic British, French, Chinese and restaurants and so on. But those lists have all been updated with our favourite newcomers that cut the mustard for that selection as well.
Mm-hmm. Should work. There you go.
So these are in alphabetical order. They're not meant to indicate any kind of favouritism, but these are our top 20 favourite newcomers of the last year. So starting off over in Notting Hill, we have 108 Garage. This really exemplifies a trend which we might touch on a little later, which is sort of casual luxury. As you can see, there are brick walls, there are fairly industrial furnishings, but you get really terrific modern food served in a casual environment. Next up, Bistro Vadovan in Putney. Not really an area that we associate with top-end cooking, but again, restaurants are really kind of making strides out into London's neighbourhoods. And in Putney at Bistro Vadovan, we have French cooking that's spiced up with Asian and Middle Eastern flavours. One of the biggest restaurant openings of the year has been Claude Bosey at Bibendum down in Chelsea. Bibendum, of course, is one of those legendary London dining rooms, was opened by Terence Conran in 1987. Famous for its stained glass windows, depictions of the Michelin men, but in recent years it's rather lost its way and hasn't managed to regain that early fame. However, they've got Claude Bosey, a star chef signing, who you may know from his 2 Michelin-starred restaurant Hibiscus in Mayfair, which shut earlier this year. At Bibendum, he's cooking in a rather more casual vein, but still showing why he's one of the best chefs in London. Core, that's actually the wrong address, I apologise. It's also in Notting Hill, but the correct address is in your handout, is the first solo restaurant from Claire Smith, who was for many years the head chef at Gordon Ramsay's 3 Michelin-starred restaurant on Royal Hospital Road. Here she's going it alone at her first solo project in Notting Hill. Again, it's a rather more casual version of high-end dining, and it's named Core because there's a core repertoire of ingredients and dishes which change with the seasons, and as you'd expect, some really high-end wines as well. Cube is a restaurant that's kind of opened under the radar in Mayfair. As you can see, it's Japanese, there's an emphasis on sushi. What we really love about Cube, though, is while Japanese is never going to be one of the cheapest options for eating out, and particularly not in Mayfair, Cube is actually offering really, really good value for money for the quality and offer. So if you or any of your clients are fans of Nobu, Zuma, those kinds of modern Japanese restaurants, then do give Cube a go. And another thing we love about it, it's small, it's intimate, so you can have a nice quiet chat in there as well. Hai Chinato, which is the first hard to pronounce restaurant in this list. Which I always say, if anyone asks me for restaurant advice, which no one ever does, but if they did, I would say give your restaurant a name that's easy to pronounce, because it's just off-putting, I think, to people if they feel nervous about what to say. But Hai Chinato is Italian. It's opened as the flagship restaurant in the Nova development down in Victoria. It's opened by James Natherton, who's obviously one of the star chefs in the London scene, and not just London. He's really a chef on the global level at the moment. And it's offering his kind of favourite pasta, risotto, pizza dishes from his favourite Italian places in New York, but in really nice, slick London surroundings. So if you need to be near Victoria, or you're just after a good modern Italian, then Hai Chinato is well worth a look. And my favourite thing about the restaurant, actually, there's a bar upstairs, and Victoria's is not a good place for drinking, either with pubs or bars. So if you need to just meet someone for a drink near Victoria Station, the upstairs cocktail bar at Hai Chinato is a brilliant place to know about.
The Drunken Oyster, I think it's called.
It is.
Drunken Oyster.
Sarah's obviously a regular.
Yeah, a few times. So this also has a semi-private dining area, so it can seat up to 18 or 40 standing.
Next up is Isabel in Mayfair. This week, of course, it's London Fashion Week, which is just drawing to a close. Isabel is currently, I'd say, the most fashionable restaurant in London. If you want to go somewhere to see the beautiful people, celebrities, the whole fashion crowd, Isabel's the one to go for. As you can see, it looks absolutely beautiful, and it's a stunning room to look at, full of beautiful people. Beautiful people, of course, don't really like high-calorie food. So the food on offer here is very high protein, low in carbohydrate. But again, that I think fits in with a lot of how a lot of people want to eat these days. You don't want to necessarily leave a restaurant feeling absolutely stuffed. It's sister restaurant to Casa Cruz in Notting Hill, which was one of the big openings from 2 years ago, where Victoria Beckham held her OBE party recently, and that kind of gives you an indication of the calibre of clientele you can expect to find at star-studded Isabel. Not too far from here, we have the Ivy City Garden. Some people are quite, I think, critical about the Ivy's expansion. They feel it may have diluted the brand, that taking a much-loved restaurant in Covent Garden and spreading it. I think these are brilliant places, to be honest. I love the Soho one for breakfast. It's got a really nice terrace when the weather's nice. They do a brilliant weekend brunch. The Marylebone one, I think, is cosy and intimate. So I'm really a big fan of what the Ivy are doing, expanding their restaurants. The City Garden one is probably our favourite of the two to have opened near here recently. There's another one done at London Bridge. As you can see from the name, it has a garden, a brilliant one for alfresco dining in the city, which the city is such a built-up area. To have that kind of urban oasis, I think, is a real feather in any restaurant's cap. And from the menu, of course, you can expect the usual Ivy favourites. There's a DJ as well, which adds a kind of cool atmosphere to a city restaurant as well, and it has that lovely feel of high-end brasserie in the decor.
Mass foliage inside as well, bit of a jungle, but it looks very cool.
Garden comes inside too.
They also have the garden room, so private dining wise it seats 24 or 32, or you can do up to 50 people for standing. It's really nice. It's on the first floor and it overlooks St Botolph's Gardens. It's a really nice view out of the window.
Jean-Georges at the Connaught, which should have an S on George, apologies, is the new restaurant at the Connaught Hotel. If you know the Connaught, this used to be the Esplanade restaurant, which curves around the side of the building. So it's a really lovely, light-filled space. Jean-Georges von Richten is one of the most famous chefs in the world. He's from Alsace in France, but based in New York. He had Vong restaurant at the Berkeley Hotel in the very late 90s, which has been one of, I'd say, the most missed restaurants on the London scene since it closed in the noughties. So his arrival back at the Connaught, the sister hotel of the Berkeley, has been very, very well received. It has some really fantastic, luxurious dishes. There's a truffle pizza. There's a sort of egg toasty that has caviar spooned on top. So obviously none of this comes cheap. But if you're in the mood for a real treat in cosseting surrounds, do give Jean-Georges at the Connaught a go. And of course, you've got some really fantastic bars at the Connaught as well. I love the Connaught bar. If I were to go and have a nice evening of cocktails, that would be top of my list of places, I think. Kiln in Soho is a new Thai restaurant. As you can see, it's a counter, which is one of the big trends at the moment, counter dining. So maybe not that suitable for client entertaining if there's more than two of you, and also not really suitable for client entertaining if you've got someone who's afraid of spice, because this is really authentic Thai cooking, lots of it cooked on an open stove and in earthenware kiln jars as well. But for a proper taste of authentic Thai cooking in edgy, urban, fun Soho surrounds, Kiln fits the bill. Another counter dining here place at Cricket, which is a new Indian restaurant in Soho. We were just chatting about this. My test for a restaurant, and it's quality is would I spend my own money there? And I've been back to Cricket, I'd say 6 times in the last year. This is really one of my new favourite new restaurants. Yes,
times is pretty good.
Total skinflint. So if I spend my own money there, then that's a rinking endorsement. This started life as a pop-up down in Brixton. They found these premises in Soho, I think at the beginning of this year, end of last year. Fantastic Indian small place. If you like hoppers, that kind of new wave Indian restaurant, you'll love this. Although there's a counter for kind of dining, if there's 2 of you, there are also these booths on the side of the restaurant, which means that if you're a group of 4 or more, you can reserve a table at Cricket, which is increasingly rare in Soho these days, particularly for these hot new restaurants. At the other end of the scale is La Dame de Pique, a very formal restaurant in the fantastic new Four Seasons Hotel. I must say, what the Four Seasons have done to the building they've taken over in Trinity Square is a brilliant renovation of one of the most eye-catching buildings near Tower Bridge. There's another restaurant here which is also worth a look, called Mei Ume, which is a Chinese restaurant, but the flagship is La Dame de Pique, which is the first UK restaurant from Anne-Sophie Pic, who is a 3 Michelin stars chef from France. You sort of know what to expect here. It's grand surroundings, multi-course tasting menus. But if you're a lover of formality and haute cuisine, fine dining, then do give this a look.
These guys also have private dining, so it's a room, seats up to 14 people.
And the whole hotel has wow factor. As soon as you walk in, you're just sort of gobsmacked by the luxury on offer everywhere. Lawn is a new restaurant in sort of the Pimlico Victoria borders. If you need to meet someone down there, or you're looking to go out for dinner down there, but you don't really want the sort of the modernity, that hard-edged look that the Nova development has, Lawn's well worth a look. It's a labour of love solo project from a former sommelier from the River Cafe and a former chef from the Square restaurant. So those are obviously two good pieces of gourmet credentials, and it's a very charming modern British restaurant that has a really personal touch. Second hard to pronounce restaurant name here, we have Mary, which is the first solo project from MasterChef presenter and former Le Gavroche chef.
I've been calling it wrong probably for about 2 months, yeah. No, Mare, I did Mare.
Okay,
yes,
it's
good to know.
Mary, which is the, I think, the Samoan word for mother. Monica Galetti has Samoan heritage, and Mary is, I believe, also the name of her own mother. When I went here when it opened in spring, I was very, very surprised. I was expecting that something which would be perhaps more formal, more similar to what she was doing at Le Gavroche in terms of the look of the place. And it's a really beautiful looking restaurant, very modern, really great use of colours with this kind of electric blue. So it doesn't feel formal, it feels smart. So it doesn't have that kind of fine dining, high-end stiffness to it. It's not, even though it's in the basement, it's nice and light and a very clever thing with an open window at the front, and really interesting, innovative, modern cooking, which shows why Monica Galetti has become such a big star on the chef scene. And there's also a very, very nice bar on the ground floor. They make their own champagne with a producer in France. So do get there early if you're having dinner there to really enjoy the bar as well.
These guys have private dining. It's quite a cool system that they've got. I often find if you're going to a chef's table, you feel a bit under pressure that you've got to talk to the chefs, and the chefs feel under pressure, they've got to talk to you. These guys have a chef's table, but they've got CCTV screens in the room looking over the kitchen, so you can watch the chefs at leisure without feeling that you've got to interact if you just kind of want a bit more of a quiet dinner, but also kind of see the action of the kitchen. Seats 10 people.
Neo Bistro is another of my own personal favourite newcomers. And this is very near Cubey, the Japanese restaurant I mentioned earlier. And this little pocket of Mayfair seems to be kind of an up-and-coming area for good value but high-end cooking. Neo Bistro is a project between Mark Jarvis, who is the chef and owner of one of our favourite newcomers from last year, Anglo Restaurant in Clerkenwell, and a chef who used to work at the Harwood Arms Gastropub in Fulham. As you can see from the picture, it's very beautiful, intricate cooking, but served in a really nice pared back casual environment. And also it's not too expensive. And everyone I know who I've sent there has come back raving about it, saying they couldn't believe how cheap the bill was for the quality of food that they were served. Somewhere that is never going to be cheap, but I think for your money, you really do get value for money, is the Nobu brand. They've opened their latest London restaurant. They already have one in Mayfair, well, 2 in Mayfair, in a brand spanking new Nobu hotel in Shoreditch. What I really liked about this was that it had the sort of the edge, the kind of grittiness of Shoreditch, but also with a nice corporate city feel to it as well. So you can kind of, if you've got clients in suits, but you want to go somewhere that's quite cool, Nobu really fits the bill for that. While we still have nice weather, there's a brilliant alfresco bar. I mean, the bar area is pretty big anyway, but it's doubled in size by this alfresco area. And then in the restaurant, you've got all those Nobu classics from the Mayfair restaurants, but here on the doorstep in the city.
They've also got some semi-private dining rooms, but also something that's quite rare in the city. You can exclusively hire the terrace, so pretty cool for summer parties. They're also doing some winter terrace stuff as well. So yeah, it can be hired privately.
Rigo is a new restaurant down in Parsons Green, so not perhaps the most convenient location, but we really want to draw your attention to it because it's a chef who's come over from Italy. He's producing, as you can see, absolutely beautiful food. So if you're Instagrammer, this would be somewhere that would really get you lots of likes, and we just want to send people down New Kings Road to try the food offer there. Also a bit off the beaten track, Sparrow in Lewisham is the first restaurant from a husband and wife team who used to work at St John Restaurant, not too far from here in Clerkenwell, but Lewisham's an area that's really coming on now in terms of new restaurants, and Sparrow is the pick of the bunch. It's a really sweet, small place with a lovely personal touch, I think. And then out to Highbury, or Holloway, depending on which estate agent you talk to, is Weston's Laundry, which is the new restaurant from the team behind Prima, which was a big success in Highbury a couple of years ago. The team behind it have opened this new restaurant with a real emphasis on fish and seafood. So if you're not a meat eater, head up to Highbury in Islington and a short walk down Holloway Road. Finally, this restaurant is pronounced Shoe. Another one to perplex people. It's the new project from the team behind the Bow restaurants, which have taken London by storm over the last couple of years for their Taiwanese buns. Shoe is more formal. It's a proper sit-down restaurant. It's really, really beautiful to look at. They're kind of trying to make it look like a 1930s kind of glamorous place in Shanghai or Taiwan. There's a very adventurous menu of quite spicy food, but if you or anyone you know really wants to try pushing the boundaries of what they associate with Chinese food, lots of spice, lots of offal, but if you have any foodie clients to impress who are adventurous in their eating, this would fit the bill. And it's also a really beautiful place to hang out in.
Yeah, and I read the menu and I thought, I don't really understand any of that, but absolutely fantastic. Everything that came out, dish after dish, was amazing. These guys have also got a private dining room called the Mahjong Room. So there is a traditional game called Mahjong, about moving tiles around. You can book that, so you can learn how to play Mahjong in the room. If you're perhaps doing a business dinner where people don't know each other, it's quite a nice way to kind of break the ice and things like that. So there's 2 rooms. They both seat 4, so quite small, or can be pushed together to seat 8.
That's it on the new restaurant roundup.
So all of these restaurants in the book and more, you can all book them online at Square Meal. So every time you go onto Square Meal and book a restaurant, you get 100 points. And once you build up your points, you can swap them for things like restaurant vouchers, MAC lipsticks, Bobby Brown, Joe Malone, various other things that we do. So we've got a bookings hub just out here. You can come and have a play around on our new website that's launching next month. Have a look at how to book a restaurant. Very, very easy. If you just want to know the best Japanese, best places in Mayfair, that's what the Square Meal's there for. So we're also now, I'm going to pick Ben's brains a bit on some of the restaurant trends, stuff that we're interested in as a Square Meal team, but hopefully we think you might be interested in as well. So
if any of you would like to kind of put your hand up at any point during this part and ask us questions, then please go ahead.
Put them on my phone rather than written them out. So this is something that I'm really interested in, about social media. I'm under the impression now that perhaps restaurants are creating dishes just so that people like me will go along and Instagram them. What kind of impact do you think it's having on dining? Do you think that we are more interested in what it looks like now than what it tastes like?
I think the visuals of food have always been so important. I mean, if we go back to, say, 15 years ago, you'd get dishes coming out billowing dry ice. In the 1980s, we had nouvelle cuisine served on these big white plates. And I think the visual aspect of food is so important. You sort of eat with your eyes before you begin to taste something. And I think we've got past the point now where some chefs were saying we're banning people taking photos of their food. It's become such an ingrained part of the dining experience. It's I don't know of any chefs who would say that they would favour the presentation of something over how it tastes. But I think it's a positive thing in so many ways. It's made dining out much more fun. If you're taking clients out and maybe the conversation's a bit stilted, then having something amazing to look at can be a real conversation starter. And from the restaurant's point of view, it's a brilliant way to get publicity. And I think some restaurants now are launching without any sort of traditional PR campaign, and it's all done through Instagram and social media. And these dishes have become such a talking point that people can't wait to go to that restaurant and try that
one of them.
Instagram dish.
Okay, so we've had Clapham, we've had Victoria. Where is the next dining hotspot?
I think what's really interesting at the moment is restaurant rents in the West End have become so expensive for prime Mayfair, Soho sites that unless you're one of these international mega brands like Nobu, say, it's really difficult to get a foothold in Mayfair. And a restaurant property advisor told me a year or so ago that really the only British restaurant chain that can compete with those international brands is Caprice Holdings. And we've seen places like the Square, Philip Howard sell up the Square to go to Chelsea to open Elliston Street, Claude Bosey selling the lease on Hibiscus to go down to Chelsea. So the West End in ways is becoming very much a place for high-end international restaurants, but which is sad in some ways. But in other ways, it means that creativity is really rippling out, not just to high-end places like Chelsea or Notting Hill, but as we've seen with Lewisham, down in Fulham, the top end of Notting Hill with Goulburn Road. So that, for me, at the moment, is where a lot of interesting things are happening. We've got 108 Garage, they're opening another restaurant around the corner. That sort of north end of Portobello is becoming pretty funky and interesting at the moment. And also over in East, I mean, kind of Shoreditch and Hoxton is such old news now, and even Dalston, but that's the whole scene is, I'd say, rippling out to Clapton, to Hackney. But I mean, it's terrific for the neighbourhood restaurants in London that you no longer have to go into central London to get a terrific meal.
And so there's so many restaurants, we don't know where to go. With there's so many restaurants, does that mean that restaurants are perhaps becoming a bit more affordable so that, to kind of compete with what's around? I
think with two of those restaurants we've talked about, with Neo Bistro, with Cube, that if you can eat really well in London now without having to spend an arm and a leg. I mean, the days when you had to go to a white tablecloth restaurant in Mayfair with very, very formal service, a really eye-opening, eye-wateringly expensive wine list. Those are all those sorts of places are pretty much being consigned to history, and the trend now is very much towards casual surroundings, no tablecloths, modern furniture, sharing plates, small plates.
So you can eat the same luxury for kind of less of the price.
Luxury for less, casual luxury. I mean, that's such a trend now. And I think, if when you're thinking about booking client dinners or client lunches, you shouldn't be put off by somewhere that might look casual, just because that's very much the trend that London dining is going to.
And let's talk about the biggie, the Ned. What do you think it's done for the city?
I think the Ned has been a terrific thing. I mean,
are you a fan?
I love the Ned. I love nearly everything that the Soho House Group do. I think they're so
really divided,
clever.
People loving and hating.
I think if you work in the city to have that sort of, or even out in East London, to have something cool right on the doorstep here that offers so many venues under one roof, that means you don't have to go into Soho or Mayfair for that kind of experience. And also people coming to all the publicity that happened when it launched, people coming to the city specifically for the Ned. It's really sort of, I think, put city dining and going out in the city at the forefront of the public's mind. When I speak to people who have got kids who are 19 or 20, and the only place they want to go to is the Ned because they've seen so much of it on social media and in the press, and they're not bothered about the latest hotspot in Soho. It's just the Ned that they want to go to.
Comes back to the social media importance, I guess.
Yeah.
My last question actually is about healthy eating, vegan, gluten-free menus. Sometimes I think, or I'm wondering, do restaurants add the word vegan to it because they think it's more healthy, and perhaps people aren't as educated as they could be about that, or are we all just going healthy eating mad for the next 5 years, or what do you think?
I think with vegan and vegetarian food, the chefs are so much more aware of people's dietary habits, their preferences, environmental factors with meat and fish as well, and food production, that restaurants have to cater for all of those habits. You can't just say, I'm not going to cook vegetarian food because I don't agree with vegetarianism, or I don't like cooking with vegetables. A real trend, though, I think, is as we eat out so much more, as restaurants have now become such a part of everyday life in London rather than something that was reserved for a special treat, that healthy dining has really taken off, not just with clean eating being promoted in cookery columns, but people just want to eat lighter food these days. As I mentioned, the kind of high protein, low carb food at Isabel, recent trends like poke, which is the Hawaiian version of sushi, much more vegetable focused restaurants like Pharmacy in Notting Hill. So I think healthy eating has really taken menus by storm.